Karnnika Seth is an internationally renowned cyber law of IP and media law expert practicing in the Supreme Court of India since 22 years. Dr. Seth is a legal advisor to the Ministry of Information and Technology, which is Government of India, and spearheads various technology-related national projects and designs policies for new and emerging technologies. Dr. Seth is the founder of Seth Associates, an established law firm based in Delhi that renders legal services to both domestic and global clients. Thank you for your time, Dr. Seth, today. I want to
Thank you, Pratishtha.
I want to begin by asking about your journey as a cyber lawyer and expert who has been contributing in the Indian and international legal framework. What are some of the challenges do you see in the online world today?
Well, online world is very dynamic, very fascinating, and that's what fascinated me right at the inception when I started law practice way back in 2000. And since then, the law has evolved with technology, and the pace at which it has, moved is phenomenal. We have seen the drastic shift in the way we are using internet today, and therefore it was a fascinating journey because at that point we did not have enough laws in the country. In fact, the special law IT Act 2000 was only enacted then. And since then, the use of technology, the sectors which it impacts, and the adoption of internet, both in digital and in rural India or urban India, and globally, the way we transact business today has completely changed. And given that challenge, it was a uncharted territory. Building the law alongside, along with the changing technology has been a very, very challenging task, both at the side of regulatory when we make policies for the government. We find it very, very interesting to see what are the key challenges and how we need to use our conventional laws to adapt wherever it's possible. Otherwise we change and we build a completely new set of laws for especially for emerging tech today. So it has been a great journey so far, and that the journey allowed us to actually do a lot of other activities alongside the legal practice, which makes it even more fascinating because it just opened the window to doing a lot of contribution even at the point of cyber awareness or trainings to law enforcement bodies, academia, educational institutions, policy work, and also author books on the subject. So we learned 360-degree with this subject and field. We grew with it.
No, definitely, because when we keep referring to IT law for many of our cases as well, we see that, still it is a lot of amendments are also that are coming up time to time.
Yes.
So when we see the rise of cybercrime today, the trend of cases have changed. People are talking about online privacy as well. So there are a lot of concerns around it. So what measures do you recommend for individuals to safeguard their digital identities and personal information when it is about online spaces?
Yes, online spaces, there are two, sets of, I would say, situations for it. One is the fact that there is emerging cybercrime today. And when you said what are the online trends and what are the online crimes, first you asked me about my journey, which I said. And now when you talk about crime challenges, then there have been different kinds of challenges, like fake news, for instance. We never had an issue like that earlier. We also have deep fakes today. Earlier times, you only would have heard of maybe ransomware or phishing or data theft crimes. But as technology grew, and today AI in the AI time and age, metaverse and AI have brought to fore many issues. So the misuse of technology is something that we see quite rampant. And to tackle those, we give cyber safety trainings not only to the civil society, but also to senior officers of the government, to even I would say police and judiciary. So there are academies which where I'm visiting faculty. So there are a lot of workshops by the industry also. A lot of key bodies are into training their members, and it's a very, very good sign because it has to have a multi-stakeholder approach. This whole awareness cannot be in silos, and that's the best part, that there is convergence happening, and that's the need of the hour. So as far as best practices are concerned, yes, we need to educate our audience on how to safeguard your privacy and data first of all, because a lot of rackets are sextortion rackets or data theft rackets. People are becoming gullible to social media attacks because social engineering is on the rise, and very easily on different platforms when people interact, they interact with strangers, they befriend strangers, and they share a lot of personal data also after a while. So children, for example, are into being groomed. There is minutes of child pornography on the net. There is a lot of attacking of or targeting of women and senior citizens, and there are lots of cyber crimes on related to payment wallets and QR code scams in on payment smart payment wallets. So a lot of people don't understand that they need to be very keep this information very confidential. Use of strong passwords, we've always encouraged. And we always say that don't click on any kind of suspicious links you may find online, especially on your social media. That's where the problem arises, because if they click, their phones, their gadgets get compromised, and it's easy for the criminal to carve on a fake identity or even siphon off monies from your account. So, and a lot of people while net banking, for instance, they would go to, Google and search engine, and they would type the name of the bank, and the first link which appears, they'll go on to do shopping on that, or they'll go do net banking on that. And that's risky, very risky, because you don't know which site is appearing on the first search result. So lot of it has to do with the due diligence, and even RBI laws have indicated that. In fact, they say that if it is a fault of a hacking attempt on a bank server, then the customer has zero liability. They will recompensate the customer if he's lost money due to the negligence, or maybe attack on the bank server. But if the consumer has given away his data willfully, then obviously if it's compromised because of their act, then the consumer is liable. So therefore, it's important to emphasize these principles of cyber safety to one and all, especially children into gaming, for instance, are being attacked by malvertising. Thankfully, we have a good number of measures, to curb fake loan scams or to curb online gaming scams. We've had various challenges. Blue Whale Challenge, for instance, when Ministry of IT, we worked on a lot of rules together with, on a lot of these issues, and with the Home Ministry has been active. Advisories have been given from time to time. Likewise, for defense, also we've had strengthening of this whole security regime. So best practices are important in every sector, especially for civil society.
Certainly, I totally agree with what you just said, because until we define that, nobody will follow it. We need to have certain rules and regulations that needs to be abided, even as an individual, as an user for us. Ma'am, you rightly shared about child safety and also women's safety in the online spaces, and you are author of one of the books as well, which is Women Rights Against Cyber Crimes.
Yes.
S&MM Social and Media Matters is an advocate for women's safety in the digital spaces. We have been working for over a decade now, and your book title is also similar to even our thoughts. So if you can just briefly share about it, what your book says, what are those challenges that women victim faces when it comes to online harms?
Now, women's safety online is a very pertinent area which needs careful consideration by key authorities. And for that reason, I have been associated with this work for long with the Ministry of IT. And there was at a particular point of time, we thought, why not educate, have a particular book which they can fall back on as a reference to understand their rights better, and what are the legal redress available to them in case they are victim of cyber crime. So this book basically discusses the various trends, the crimes which are prevalent on the online media, especially targeting women, and it talks about cyber stalking, cyber bullying, sextortion rackets, breach of privacy, video voyeurism, and a number of issues like criminal intimidation, harassment, even impersonation, cheating by impersonation, financial frauds, which they succumb to, And a lot of these, key cyber crimes which affect women at large. So it really includes morphing, for instance, or deep fake attacks. And that's important to educate women today, because a lot of these things can be avoided. And so the book also discusses not only the prevalent crimes, the trends, but the modus operandi of criminals, how they entrap the women, and what they should be doing as best practices to safeguard, themselves from these kind of attacks. So the best practices we've envisaged, and elucidated in the book, include, measures like having a secure password, not sharing the password with anyone, not clicking on any kind of suspicious links, and not sharing their, data or personal particulars, especially, phone calls which amount to phishing attacks, or even payment gateway, kind of frauds, how to avoid those kind of issues on QR code scam frauds. So the book also discusses, the key regulations and laws which protect women in such situations, and what are the legal remedies. For instance, we're talking about provisions of IT Act. For girl children, we have FOXO Act in place, and likewise, IPC has provisions, and we have a new law which has come about. So even, there will be certain provisions which will be similar, for example, for criminal intimidation or outraging modesty of a woman, breach of her privacy. So punishments as much as 3 years of imprisonment, fine or more are being prescribed by the laws currently in India. So now it also talks about, the legal helplines. For example, you have 1930 as a helpline number, and the National Cybercrime Reporting Portal, which is cybercrime.gov.in. And there are a lot of agencies which help out in, such scenarios or circumstances. But the importance of reporting has been highlighted because a lot of women don't speak up. There are women who are target of cybercrime, and they are not aware what are their rights and where do they contact, who do they contact. And a lot of them don't report cybercrime, which we are strongly advocating that they should report, and they should, contact the concerned agency there. And once investigation starts, you have a zero FIR possible. You can actually lodge a complaint from anywhere in India, and you can report the crime, and the police will investigate it, and followed by the legal redress available. And not only that, if the woman is defamed, for instance, I've handled many cases of cybercrime where women have been defamed, for instance, and there we look for, we actually advise them to have file a case for compensation. So there have been cases where they've been duped, certain data or even their identity, and handle cases of cyber harassment against women, where even the, fake websites which target them and defamatory material has been written about them, or their personal pictures and photographs and videos are going viral, they have been stopped from, being published online. So both legal remedies through legal notices and through court action are possible, and both remedies are there, both criminal as well as civil. And a lot of times they are not aware of these rights. So that's the reason why I wrote this book for, women rights. And it's high time in the day that every woman needs to be empowered with this knowledge.
And thank you for writing that book, because a lot of women look for support, they look for guidance, they look for material content that they can read about their own rights when it comes to both offline and online. And especially
I
when
wanted to mention, yes, that this book was actually released, on by the IT Ministry of IT, close to the Women's Day, I think on the Women's Day itself, last year.
Thank you, ma'am, again for writing such books, and we hope to keep seeing such books coming in future as well. I will definitely buy one copy of this to read about more about it, and also give my thoughts, because I have worked a lot in women's space as well, and now in the tech space. So trying to bridge both gender and technology over there as well. So we'll definitely give a read to your book. So
Certainly, and in fact, this is a free book which you can easily download from the ISCA portal of the Ministry of IT. And there's another book on children's safety, which is protection of children on the internet, which I had authored in 2015. There was another book for NCPCR. We wrote this book I wrote for the National Commission for Protection of Child Rights. It's titled Child Victims of Cybercrime. That is also a free book which you can download as a resource.
Thank you, ma'am. Definitely. And we would like to use your resource as well, if we can, with your consent, put it on our website as well, so that anybody
Sure, why not?
who's
Yes,
looking for some solutions or some reading material, they have easy access to it as well.
absolutely.
So this was wonderful to know about your book. Definitely should be given a read to it as well. People who are watching this video, please, it's a free book. Please go and read it. It will give you ample of knowledge about how you can be safe online. Especially it is for women, but then you can also read it for yourself. At least you will know your individual rights as well. So I'm jumping on to my next question. So I want to know, in your experience, what are the most effective strategies for individuals and organizations like us to protect themselves legally in an increasingly digitized world? What are those tips that you would like to give to us?
Any organization, for that matter of fact, even if it's a civil society organization, needs to know a lot of legal compliances which will need to be made, especially if you considering the data protection and privacy requirements, because we have a new law in the country, DPDP, which by which even if data is digitized, for example, of people, so those have to be kept, in a manner that is as per the accordance with law. So when we say that, we mean that there has to be a complete, compliance when we say collection of data, for instance, from your customers or users, then their data, what data is being collected, how it is being collected, the manner in which it will be preserved, as well as for what purpose it is to be used, the lawful purpose. If you're sharing the data with any other entity, then that disclosure. So proper prior notice and disclosure has to be made, and a consent, express consent needs to be taken from the user. So that's important, and one needs to respect user rights. For example, if a user wants to withdraw his consent or restricts the processing in some way, then that is also possible. So they basically, the user has been empowered also, and therefore every entity which collects personal data of citizens and puts it for its use, for processes it in any manner, needs to comply with the DPDP law. Apart from that, there are sector-specific laws now, depending on what information you're gathering or what activity you're doing. For example, if you are a financial institution, the RBI laws definitely come into being, and every organization needs to have a robust cybersecurity practice. And if there is a cyber breach, for instance, you have to report it within 6 hour time window to the certain. So that is something which a lot of entities are still not aware of, and they need to know. Apart from this, they need to also comply with the other regulations. For example, if they're a social media platform, they have to take down content the moment they get actual notice of a illegal activity on their page, on their forum. They have to remove it, and if it's obscene material, within 24 hours, and if it's not obscene, otherwise illegal, 36 hours. So Ministry of IT has been given various rules from time to time. So has the Home Ministry. So there have been various indications, for example, data retention guideline. So a data, like a VPN service provider, has to keep the data records for at least 5 years. Now that's again a new law. So similarly, there are sector-specific laws depending on what the context is, or what the service provider is doing and what kind of data is being collected. Those compliances have to be made from time to time as per the law of the land.
Certainly, ma'am, you mentioned about DPDP Act, which is also there in place. It is being enacted now. I want to understand, how do you envision the two powerful laws that are coming? Like, one is already in place and another one is being drafted as well. So DPDP Act is there, then Digital India Act. I want to know about your
Yes.
thoughts on that as well, because there has been a lot of conversation around it. What needs to be included? What are the measures that needs to be taken? Who all needs to be protected? So when it is about Digital India Act, that means protecting all digital Indian users over there. So I just want to understand the key highlight points that you feel from the two acts. for the users to know that these are the main highlight points that one should know about it. So if you can just draw
Yes.
upon key points from there.
So the law in India and the contours, the whole landscape is changing. And to contribute to this dynamic shift, we have the DIA and the DPDP Act, which are, it just been brought into force. So in fact, the enactment has been made. The dates of coming into force will have to be given by the government. But what we see in terms of content there is that there is a substantial shift in the way in which the e-governance will happen now in India. And we see the basic principles which are imbibed in these two enactments are openness, transparency, a lot of accountability, and trust and reliability, which are pivotal to such laws in the country. While both are empowering both citizens, and to a great extent, the rights of the citizens have been enhanced to a great degree. For example, in the DPDP, we find user rights, right of withdrawal, right of refusal of processing. They can, choose to decline consent. They can, choose to update their information there. User rights have been, very clearly laid down. The act applies to both government and private entities, which brings in more accountability and transparency. Apart from that, the issue of notice and consent makes it obligatory on the part of the service provider to inform the user in advance and not to keep things in fine print, which they may miss out. And so the burden is not on the user alone, but also the obligation now shifts to the consumer, like the service provider, to give that prior notice as an important step. There is grievance redressal also, and proper regulatory framework being brought into force. From that point of view, there will be enforcement possible in a more expeditious manner. As far as the other act is concerned, when we say DIA, it has a very broad spectrum of issues which will be addressed, including the emerging tech, which is very, very exciting, because when we say issues like fake news, we still don't have provisions on that in the current law. And alongside that, we also have interesting changes which it is envisaging. For example, regulating the high risk AI based systems. Now, when we say AI, then yes, it's a good sign, because you can't let AI, you know, being used without a human centric oversight or an approach. And therefore, we advocate strongly responsible use of AI, so that those provisions will be helpful. Though I had, very clearly advocated that India needs a separate law for AI in our direct interaction with the Honorable the Minister, Chandrasekhar ji, in the roundtables which were being discussed. So we are actually on this similar line. We are following a high risk system regulatory approach at this point, but soon I think we will need a separate law of AI also in India. I have voluntarily worked on an AI bill as well, and that has been, brought like I published the same for the concerned authorities to look into, which can be a framework which India can adopt. So that was a voluntary initiative supporting the G20 mission in India. Apart from that, the act itself, when we look at the DIA Act, it has a very interesting, aspects of regulatory frameworks. They are going to be again holding more accountability, I would say, adjudicatory, approach will be more expeditious again, more efficiency in terms of answering or responding to the consumers. That's important. And not only that, the definitions will be changed. In the IT Act, we have certain definitions which may not take into account current terminologies. So we'll be having that more openness, more transparency, and more accountability, I think, from the government as well as from the side of private operators and entities. So it will also take into account the data protection law which is coming to India. So that is a significant move, because we did do need to involve, in fact, impact the other law, because we can't say that will be excluded as a separate law, because it has to merge. So the issues the addressed and the way in which the framework will be, it has to be in convergence with the new DPDP law. So it can't be inconsistent with it. So therefore, it's had come at the right time, at the apt time, I feel, in India.
Certainly. I think so. The mission is one law for all that we need to
Yes.
have. So, not to have different entities, but to have one particular law that will protect, safeguard all the digital users in India, howsoever they're using or consuming internet in different forms. So, be
Yeah,
it
one more
gaming.
interesting thing about DPDP is it has severe punishments and penalties because we follow, the GDPR, we have a high fine here. In India, we have prescribed like 200 crores, up to 200 crores of fine, which is a great, I would say very strict punishment. And therefore, the rigors of this law will actually I would say compel agencies to not ignore or neglect their duties, and they will be understanding their obligations very seriously because it has serious implications. So it brings in more accountability also on the part of intermediaries. Even the DIA. If you see the DIA Act, it has more accountability even from intermediaries, from that perspective. So both the laws, I think, are geared in the right direction. But as technology progresses, even this framework will need a amendment at some point or the other.
Definitely, as we'll see challenges ahead, probably amendments will be required as per that. So, my last question to you, not taking much of your time, I just want to understand, since being an expert and also a cyber lawyer, how do you foresee the involvement of youth while shaping laws in India? A lot of young professionals might be looking out or of becoming a cyber lawyer. So anything that you want to say for them, like if we involve them, what is that, how we are going to shape laws in India, while we see that, majority of population comprises of youth today. So how do you see that?
Yes. Very interesting question. I think this is something that I completely endorse, that youth have a major, major role to play in how they will shape up, build the country as well as build tech in India. And we are an example for the rest of the world. We're already making strides in many ways, and with the G20 happening in India, we already know the role of tech we are playing and other industries as well. But as far as technology is concerned, I can say for sure that the youth has a significant role to play. No matter what profession or business they undertake, or a job, the importance of using the technology in the right manner cannot be undermined. So the youth has a responsibility. They owe it to the nation and they owe it to our society to use technology responsibly. Even if they're using it for their personal use or they're using it for their work, they have to use it mindfully and responsibly. That's the first, I would say pillar. The second pillar is when you're actually contributing and you're working, on a commercial business, you should have ethical principles in mind that, you're using internet, not only looking after the safety of yourself or your business, but also of the other, including your customer, and be mindful of consumer protection laws and fulfill your obligations of notice, consent, and likewise other compliance with the Indian laws. Thirdly, when it comes to the nation, for example, you may not be directly involved in a fraud, but if you come to know somebody has been duped, it is your responsibility to also ask the concerned victim to report. And in certain cases, you when you come to know of a crime, for example, in child pornography cases, anybody who comes to know of such a thing has to report it, mandatorily report it as per the POCSO law. That's also something we know that a lot of people are not aware of. And as youth, they have a wider role to disseminate this cyber awareness through their colleges or educational institutions or their industry associations. And, not only that, will prevent cybercrime, but also combat it better. So best practices on cyber safety need to be, inculcated and spread out by media and other, means. And that's important through discussions, through think tanks, through deliberations. And this sort of awareness is the key to the future, because youth has a role to play. They can play in several ways, no matter what you do in your personal space or what you do as work, or for your society or for your country. You can build, for example, software with ethical code in mind. It shouldn't be discriminatory. The code should be fair, should be mindful of justice principles, mindful of accountability and trust. Based on these pillars, can you use responsibly the emerging tech? So it's important to look at those things, like just like we have a constitution, we have a preamble. So there has to be some sort of ethics which we follow and allow others to adopt as well. And that's important. Yeah.
Totally, totally. I agree with what you just said. And this is really insightful for us to know that, how the law is shaping in India, or what are the measures that are being kept in mind, because I'm sure that India is waiting for these two powerful laws to be enacted very, very soon. And also as India approaches for elections, assuming that, a lot of misinformation and fake news will be there on different platforms where people will also consume. So just to be thoughtful around that, this is going to be a real game changer when this gets enacted. And I'm sure the punishments that have been understated in the laws are going to be, they're going to be very strong, because people will think about it, what they're using it, what they're doing online. So what is that last message that you would like to give to all the users who are watching this video? What are the key takeaways that they need to have, or they need to keep in mind? So what are those 5 or few tips that you want to give to users today?
On internet, we have to be very careful and mindful of what we share. And therefore, there are some best practices I'd like to share with you. So number one, we have to be very careful of our passwords. So have a very strong password. Number two, do not click on any kind of suspicious links you find on the web or on social media. Number three, be very mindful of what you post online, because it shouldn't be any personal information. Number four, any kind of wishing or smishing calls or messages, do not answer with your personal details. And number five, if you ever find something suspicious, just report it to the cybercrime unit of police nearby, or on cybercrime.gov.in, or the helpline 1930. These are some important things. And if you'd like, you should also, if possible, have a very strong antivirus and anti-spyware with you, because on your devices, it will give you some additional safeguards which will protect you or prevent cybercrime.
No, these are wonderful tips. Thank you, Dr. Seth, for giving these great tips to all the users who are watching this, and to all the viewers, basically, who are watching this. I'm sure they are going to benefit from these strong tips from a lawyer, coming from a lawyer, especially who is a cyber lawyer and an expert, and who has been teaching and guiding a lot of digital citizens. So thank you for your time today, Dr. Seth.
Thank you, Pratishtha. Thank you. It's been a pleasure being on this show with you.